In Imba, like many other component-based frameworks, we're going to create our application's UI using components. And in Imba, we typically call these tags, custom tags. So we're going to define our own custom tag. You can see right now that I'm mounting a div to our document, but let's define our own tag. So instead of div, we could have a tag called habit item. Tags are defined using the tag keyword followed by the name of the tag. Inside of here, it's a lot like a class definition. You can have props and methods, and there's one special method that you're almost always going to have, which is render. So I'm going to define a render method, and the render method's job is to return back an HTML template, starting with a special self tag. So inside of there, I'm going to put a div, and then I'll put the name of a habit, like exercise. Now, defining this tag doesn't actually do anything, just like defining a class doesn't do anything. It just makes the definition available to use, but we're not currently using it. And with a class, you can instantiate the class, and with a tag, we can make use of it by mounting it to the document. So instead of this div, I'm going to mount a habit item. So it's like we've created our own new type of HTML tag. You can see habit item mounted to the DOM, and the content shows up here. Let's add a little bit more. I'm going to put a label tag inside of here, and then I'll put a input type equals checkbox. So this kind of represents a habit that you can check off each day. And you can see these tags are nested inside of the label tag using indentation. Now, because the render tag is so common, every tag you create is probably going to have one, you can actually leave it off. And as long as the last part of your tag is an HTML template starting with self, Imba will know that that is the content of the render method, and you don't actually have to write def render, which makes your tag definition a little bit more streamlined. Now, we don't want to have a hard-coded name of a habit here. We don't want all of these to say exercise. We want to be able to use some sort of a variable that represents the name of a habit. So let's add a prop to our tag called name. And I'll set the default value of untitled. And then down here, instead of the string exercise, I'll use the prop name. So all the values inside of tags are actual Imba code. So if you want a string, it has to be in quotes. And if you put a variable, it's going to return back the value of that variable. Okay, now when I save, we see that default value of untitled is displayed here. So how do we pass in our own value? You know, with a class, you might pass in some values into the constructor that set props. With a tag, the props define attributes automatically. So now there's a name attribute just because I've defined a name prop here. So I can say name equals, and I'll put something like clean up. Now I'm going to put a div here to serve as a container, and I'm going to put a couple of habit items. I'll put exercise back in, and maybe one more, learn Imba. Okay, so you can see we can reuse this tag. We can provide different values for the name prop in each one. All right, now I want you to try writing a tag. So I'm going to paste in a little prompt here for you to follow. I want you to create a new tag definition, name it habit group, define a render method, don't forget the self tag within render, and then inside of that self tag, put 3 habit item tags, and then replace the content of inba.mount with a single habit group. So I'll go ahead and do that part for you. I'll turn this into a habit group, and I'm going to comment these out because you might want to reference them. These 3 habit items should be the content of your habit group's render method. And you'll notice when I save now, the page is blank because I've mounted habit group, which doesn't exist. So you can go ahead and define that tag right here, and then I'll come show you how to do it. Okay, so to create that tag, we would say tag habit group, def render, self, and then we're going to put those 3 habit items. So I'll just cut and paste them from down there. There we go. Remember, we can remove render if we want to. That's optional. So I'll just indent those back. And there's our habit group tag. Looks good. Of course, we still have hard-coded items here. We want to generate these dynamically from a list. So we're going to learn how to do that next.